listening to the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network, part of Sports Illustrated, giving you daily NFL Draft, Dynasty, and Devy Fantasy Football podcasts.
Welcome into the Draft Seminar presented by Sports Illustrated's NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network. I'm your host, Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, joined, as always, by my co-host, John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar. John, we are nearing the end of our Rookie Profile series, so we decided we wanted to get some input from those watching and listening and figure out who a prospect that we could cover that the listeners really wanted. So we put out a poll, and Jaelon Darden was our guy that received the most interest. So this should be a really interesting player to break down. He does seem to be the hotness right now across the mock drafts, across Twitter, across everything. So it was definitely worth a deep dive into Jaelon Darden, and I definitely have some feelings. I'm sure you do as well.
The fans voted. I think 50% of the poll went to Jaelon Darden. You're absolutely right, Matt. Give the people what they wanted. So we have broken down the tape, and we are looking at Jaelon Darden as an NFL prospect. In high school, Matt, he played quarterback, and he was rated as a 3-star prospect. The athleticism is clearly there. But do remember, he played at North Texas, everyone, and that is in Conference USA. As a freshman in 2017, he had 32 receptions, 281 yards, and 3 touchdowns. We jump ahead a little bit. He really kind of pops on the college fantasy football and a little bit on the national level as a junior in 2019. 76 receptions for only 736 yards. He averaged less 10 yards a catch, but he did score 12 touchdowns. Last year, though, this is why people are excited in the Twitterverse, and I believe why they asked us to look at him. He was stupendous. 74 catches for 1,190 yards and 19 touchdowns. Jaelon Darden was unbelievable for the Mean Green. He was All-American by ESPN and first-team All-American from Football Writers Association of America and PFF. He was the Conference USA Most Valuable Player and first-team All-Conference honors. He was Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award finalist in the state of Texas and semifinalist for the Blitnikoff Award. When he finished his career as a Mean Green receiver, he was the leader in receptions, yards, and receiving touchdowns. He logged 6 games with 3 touchdowns, and he logged 9 multi-touchdown games for the Mean Green. Matt, interesting prospect. I have lots of questions. As I'm sure you watch the film, I'll talk about it a little bit more later in detail. What were your grades on Jaelon Darden?
Yeah, so a really, fun college football player, John, but we have to find ways to translate that to fantasy football. And when you look at his athleticism, there's a lot of excitement to his game, but you have to figure out how to pull players with the context of their scheme and the defenders they're playing against. And while I think he's a good athlete, I give him a score of 82. He's twitchy. He's used in a variety of different ways. I think he has solid vertical ability. He's a little undersized height-wise, so his vertical ability helps offset that. I give him an 82 there. Now, I give him an 82 for speed. If you're watching Jaelon Darden highlights, or maybe just some of the flashier clips, you might wonder why he only has an 82 for speed. He looks really fast on tape. Keep in mind the context of the defenses he's playing against and also the consistency at which he shows that speed. I actually think, John, he's quicker than he necessarily is fast. I give him an 82 there for speed. Yards after catch ability, I give him an 80 for that. He does shake players in the open field. He is dangerous running with the ball in his hands. But, John, he runs out of control very often. You could see multiple times on his game film, he falls over because he falls over because he is too far ahead of himself. He's unbalanced. He doesn't really run under control, which will not translate well to the next level at all. And John, his hands, I give him a 74. By the way, you see the drop off there. His hands are his fourth highest rated for me. I see some drops. I see some concentration drops on tape, which I absolutely never like to see from a wide receiver prospect. And then past that, John, I have issues with his route running. I think it's really limited. He banks on a pushing off of receivers really often to create separation. His blocking is really non-existent. His contested catch ability is really lacking. So, and also consider his strengths, right? I think he's going to be used as a gadget guy at the next level if he makes an NFL roster. That doesn't project well for fantasy football purposes. He should be a taxi squad stash. If you're playing on a deep league, 30 to 35 guys, and you have 5-6 spots on your taxi squad, go ahead and throw Jaelon Darden down on that. But I would not invest high rookie draft capital on this player. But let's go ahead, John. Let's flip on the tape because I'm coming from a negative perspective, but he's fun to watch play. And we're going to see that here as we flip on the tape provided by Brandon Lejeune. And so you can see right off the bat here against SMU, there's that elusive ability there. He takes that sidestep. He jukes the guy out of his shoes here. He catches that nice out route for the touchdown. And you're going to see a lot of manufactured production. We talk about that a lot. And you can see the nice straight line speed there. Once he breaks that first guy, there's nobody playing deep in that Cal defense.
Nobody. And I saw a bunch of his games because North Texas, the interesting part about COVID, we were able to watch teams this year live that we normally don't. And we're watching them just really destroy lower level competition right here. Houston Baptist was one of those games. I watch a lot of SMU. They're not very good on the defensive end. There he scores again against them, Matt.
And you're seeing here, John, a little bit of that limited route running ability. He's mostly running outs. He will run a lot of fly routes as well. And you're also kind of seeing, although you see some speed, you could see there earlier, he got caught up to downfield. There's that push off that I'm talking about. Yeah. He loves that push off. And you could see that against Charlotte here. And this one's a little bit better. He separates well downfield with his speed. But again, we're talking about a Charlotte defensive back. And if you pull him out of the system, it doesn't look half as well, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you. I don't know if he'd get away with those push-offs. One, at the NFL level from the refs, and two, I think you're going to have cornerbacks who are going to be a little upset and push back a lot harder at the NFL level, Matt.
And that's a great point, John. Something you're not necessarily going to see on this tape, but that came through really consistently for me, is that when he ran routes over the middle of the field, he was pushed off of his routes, and that undersized play really did come through. So he's exciting. There's highlight reels. It's fun to watch him play, and he was an exciting college player, but we should proceed with more caution, I think, when it comes to his fantasy football translation at the next level. But John, tell me how that works with your production profiles.
Absolutely. And I loved watching him play football this year. What a great college fantasy football player. First thing, 5'8", 175. You're looking at a Devonta Smith level wide receiver from a height weight point, but he's not. He's not the route runner. He's not as physical. He's not as tough. So and you're looking at him beating Conference USA defensive backs. Smith beat NFL SEC defenders. You've got to understand the difference, my friends. In my model, the model likes him. 230 career catches, incredibly impressive, but only 2,782 yards, 12.1 yards per catch. I mentioned his junior year, he averaged less than 10 yards per catch. 38 touchdowns, but 19 of it came in this last season. What I was shocked by, Matt, look at that team aerial dominator. He was a 42% share of the Mean Green's passing game. That's not going to happen at the NFL level. They're not going to manufacture plays for a gadget player. Catch percentage is nice at 63%. What I wanted to do, Matt, how can we quantify for our viewers the incredible challenge that Jaelon Darden has to become a fantasy asset? So what I did, Matt, I went back to 1999. Yes, people, 1999. And I looked until 2017. I don't like to judge players 3 years. It's too much. I'm not going to judge a player that came out in 2019 yet. I took all group of 5. Now, in 1999, they were not group of 5. They were just Division I lower level, but same conferences. I only took those players who were drafted in the first 2 rounds from the group of 5 team. Let me give you some names in the last, from 1999 to 2017. Troy Edwards, Steelers. Ashley Lalee, Hawaii, Broncos. Donnie Avery, Houston, by the Rams. Titus Young, Boise State, by the Lions. Brian Quick, Appalachian State, by the Rams. Aaron Dobson from Marshall to the Patriots. Zay Jones from Eastern Carolina to the Bills. Anyone remember those names? I do, because I'm an old man. None of those became huge fantasy starters. Now, I want to give credit. Here are the players who succeeded. Roddy White out of Alabama, Birmingham to the Falcons. Greg Jennings out of Western Michigan to the Packers. And Devonta Adams, Fresno State to the Packers. You'll notice, the Packers identified 2 of them, which is actually really impressed by the organization. 2, Roddy White, Greg Jennings, and Devonta Adams were all far bigger than Jaelon Darden, better route runners. It is going to be an incredible hurdle for Jaelon Darden to make it to the NFL. And Matt, I don't think he's going to have first or second round draft capital. All the players I named were first and second round draft capital. He's probably around 6, if not an undrafted free agent. That says no. So I'm being optimistic. So yes, he's a quick twitch athlete. He has ability. He's a highlight reel at the college level. I'm not going to get him in a fantasy dynasty league unless it's round 70, or it's not round 7, and I'm just looking for a player. He's not. I agree with you. What did you have him? A stash? A dynasty stash? I agree with you, Matt.
All right. You asked for it, and there you have it. Wide receiver Jaelon Darden out of North Texas. Feel free to, if you're watching the video on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment and let us know if there's other players you would like to see, or leave a review. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, your favorite podcast provider, leave us a comment. If there's a player, we do have about 10 more profiles left, so we got plenty left for you, but let us know. And we can look into breaking down your favorite prospect as well. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you're subscribed. And if you're watching the video, please make sure you give it a like. As always, we appreciate